Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. As we saw, Formula One over Austin had its up and downs. Basically, I mean, it was, I don't want to say surprising, but it is something that I don't think was anticipated in a ways. Let's put it this way: we expected Max to win, most likely. I mean, it was a strong case of him winning, of course. I mean, basically, even though the guys won the championship, why would he want to keep racing? It's not in his nature. And people are like, oh, it's his nature to win. In reality, no. He's got his 50th win. It's his 50th win. So because he's got his 50th win, it's a case where now he's basically looking to essentially break Hamilton's record of most wins, essentially. Getting the championships, he'll definitely be able to break Schumacher's and Hamilton's record at that point as well, too. But I think he needs the most wins now, more than anything else. And then I think he's going to try to see if he can get the most amount of points in his lifetime as well, too. That's one aspect you got to look at as well, too. I mean, granted, Max started at P6, but the way his car is, the way Red Bull has provisioned their car, it's unbelievable. I mean, I think if Hamilton was in that car, Lewis Hamilton was in that car, I think we'd be talking about the GOAT, of how much of a GOAT he really is, more than anything else. So let's be honest. The car does make a huge factor. Not only the driver, but the car does make a huge factor. Because Checo, as good as he is, I mean, in reality, look at from this angle. He's got a great car, but he's not that great of a driver. Because we saw in other cars that he was in prior to this, he wasn't as great per se. I mean, you saw his some form of brilliance, but not as much. So the real question comes down to this. Let's say Leclerc or Sainz, for that matter, Carlos Sainz, he's showing his skills with the Ferrari car that if he was in this Red Bull car, chances are he'd be challenging Max for the number one spot for the championships day in and day out, basically. And of course, in the case, if I'm kind of curious to see if Daniel Ricciardo had gone back into Red Bull to replace Checo, where would that dynamics be? Because remember, he was one, and then Max was an up and comer, number two, always constantly challenging Ricciardo and also overstepping his bounds a little bit. Would Ricciardo sit back and be the number two spot for Max, or would he challenge him in that? But I think he would challenge him a little bit as well too. But that's wishful thinking, quite honestly, more than anything else. I mean, the one thing that did happen though is the fact is both Leclerc and Hamilton finishing the number two spot, and Lando Norris finishing number three, and then Sainz finishing number four. Hamilton and Leclerc both were disqualified, as you saw, or if you are aware, due to the fact that one of the factors is I'm not entirely sure, but the plank wear was worn out a little bit more than normal. That to the point where because of the plank wear, it violated some of the regulations. So what the plank really does is it's for safety purposes, but the lesser the plank, the more downforce that they have as a car, which gives them a more competitive advantage, more than anything else. So, because the plank wear was worn out a little bit more, it fell below the threshold, or above the threshold. Do you want to say? Because it was at zero point 0.9 milliliters when it's supposed to be at 10 milliliters. And because it fell underneath that basically, and because of wear and tear, they became disqualified. Sadly, the sad part is both Mercedes and Ferrari knew the findings. There was not much they can do about it, because one of the things is these, just like tires, these things can wear out due to track conditions. I mean, if it's a bumpy track, it's going to happen at that point, and especially the fact of what happened with the qualifyings, it was going to happen at that point as well too. So it kind of sucks for that matter. And the thing is had Hamilton not been disqualified, he would have definitely come close to Checo's second spot in the championships, where Hamilton probably would have finished off at number two. So now he's got 3-4 more races to overtake Checo. I mean, Checo seems to be going downstream, and now the other factors as well too, beside the drivers, also the Constructors' Cup. Now it looks like basically Mercedes has the number two seed already in place, or not the number two seed, but the number two spot. But Ferrari is making a push now, and the fact is Carlos was able to now get to the number three spot, and Hamilton was disqualified. Ferrari got some more points, and they're catching close to Mercedes now. Now it's really surprising. The fact is everyone thought Aston Martin was going to be, based on the beginning of the year and towards the start of the year, that Aston Martin was going to, challenge Mercedes for the number two spot. But it looks like I don't know what's going on now. I mean, Alonso, what is keeping him in there, but he can only do so much. You need two other, another driver to do well, and like Lance Stroll is not doing so well. We'll see what happens next year with this whole fiasco with Aston Martin and like Lawrence Stroll and Lance Stroll, and see what happens there. But in the situation with Aston Martin, it looks like they're going to be overtaken by McLaren for sure too. And now the question is can McLaren actually catch up to Ferrari? It sort of can, so long as both Piastri and Lando can actually sort of keep on pace by finishing P2 and P3 ahead of Ferrari, then they should be able to catch up to Ferrari at that point and take the 3 spot as well too, quite honestly. But it all depends, because the thing is, Sainz has been consistent. Sainz is a consistent driver. So if he finishes in the top 5, I think Ferrari should definitely get the 3 spot. If he can get the 3 spot or 4 spot, 4 or 3 spot, and if Leclerc can be in the top 5 as well too, then Ferrari should be able to overtake Mercedes for the number 2 spot, assuming of course Hamilton and Russell finish below the number 5 spot. And now the real question comes down to is with Checo with his status for next year. I mean, the way he's driving, he's not really challenging. I mean, it's been all Max, quite honestly. It's been all Max more than anything else. I think Red Bull is okay with Checo right now, but in reality is, I think they want someone up there to make sure that for next year and the following 2 or 3 years that Red Bull stays in the running for the Constructors' Cup or has that shot of winning the Constructors' Cup. But like, put it this way, if Max was finishing number 1, and let's say Hamilton and Russell were finishing with 2, 3 every time, then, in this situation, Mercedes would have the Constructors' Cup instead of Red Bull. So I think they got some concerns going on in that situation, wondering like, all right, is Checo the right person? I'm not sure what to say about that, honestly, because quite honestly, it's a crapshoot at this point. Checo shows how good he is. He's got the skills, but it seems like it might be wearing thin on him. As the season progresses, it seems like his skills dull a little bit more so. Whereas with Hamilton, it seems like as the season progresses, his skills and I think his skills just basically sharpen up a little bit more. I mean, in the beginning, kind of like eases in, and toward the middle, he like gets back into the groove of things, and then towards the end, he becomes sort of one with his car in ways that he sharpens and hones in on that skill set. But with that, I don't know what is going to happen now. With the question of like, there was a case where with Horner now. Of course, there's rumblings as you're hearing about Horner and Red Bull, where they want to get rid of what's his name now? Outside of Verstappen, the other dude. I forgot his name now. It's eluding me. I forgot his name. Give me a second. I got to type it up. I forgot his name now. Horner has been taking digs at Checo a little bit, not blatantly, but he's definitely taking it basically to him. Where's the power struggle? It's just related to the power struggle. I forgot his name. Marco, basically. It comes down to that, basically, where I think Horner's trying to like get Marco out of the picture, basically, because once Red Bull changed hands, but once ownership changed a little bit or succeeded to the new successor, Helmut Marko is someone that is playing up to them a little bit. But it's one of those things where I think Christian Horner, I think he and Helmut have always clash, and I think they're trying to, like Christian Horner's trying to set it up to himself that he's the one that's Red Bull. He's Mr. Red Bull. I do think Helmut is trying to take a lot of that glory away from him, even though he's kind of like an advisory role. I think he's trying to garner that attention as well too, being he's Mr. Red Bull. I think it's between these two egos come into play at this point as well too. But honestly, let's be blunt. It is Christian Horner more than anything else with Red Bull. It's because of him. If not because of him, Red Bull's not where they're at right now. I mean, honestly, let's put it this way: he knew Sebastian Vettel, he knew Max, he knew Daniel, he knew the right people to pluck. Unfortunately, he's got some misses, of course, with the fact of Gasly was one big miss. I mean, honestly, he probably should have been a little bit more patient with Gasly, more than anything else. But then there's also the case with Alex Albon as well too. The question is like, maybe been a little bit more patient with Alex Albon. It might be a different story at this point as well too. But it's let's see how things shape up at the end of the season, basically, between Helmut and Christian. I mean, right now, I think there's two factors. One, you got the fate of Helmut Marko, and then the other fate of Sergio Perez, basically. Is like these two, basically, what's going to happen with them. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the year what happens. Because, again, both Helmut and Christian agree on one thing. Like, Checo's not living up to his expectations. And so it's one of those things I think you see slight digs here and there towards Checo. I would not be surprised if Checo wants to leave. Quite honestly, more than anything else, I would not be surprised if Christian Horner tries to make a play for Bottas himself. I mean, Bottas has basically shown that he's a good driver when he's got a really good car. I mean, he did really well with, of course, Mercedes, when Mercedes was doing really well. Alfa Romeo, he's getting the best out of the car. But I think if he could pull Bottas out of Alfa Romeo into Red Bull, and he plays a number 2 guy, and he can also make a challenge for Verstappen a little bit, that it might play a huge factor into these things. Now, the real question is like with Alex Albon, he's already locked into Williams. It would be great for him to go into Aston Martin, quite honestly. I think if he were to go to Aston Martin, I think him and Alonso would have made a great team, and they would have brought more prestige to Aston Martin a little bit more, and like given Mercedes a run for their money at that point. But with that, I'll leave it at that. I mean, there's a little bit too much more to go on to it, but with the races and such. But I'll leave it at that for now. I mean, I'll talk more about it much after Mexico's race. Maybe get a little bit more into depth in that. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Helmut Marko is going to be with Red Bull? Do you think Checo is going to be with Red Bull? What do you think the fate of Bottas is? Will you think Bottas be going into Red Bull? I mean, there's no rumors going about it, but I would not be surprised. There's something going on behind the scenes from there. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I do read my comments. I do respond to them when they warrant a response. And also, if you like my channel, like my videos, like my content, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. For those who have, I thank you for that. And with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, unrehearsed. Until next time.